Hello everyone. Sorry about that delay, the technical difficulties here on my side. But anyway, we're here with you now live, and I want to welcome you to Caretakers, a weekly live show where collectors from around the world showcase their collections and tell their collecting stories. Today I want to tell you some about my collecting passion, and I want to start off by answering a few questions that we normally ask others that's going to be presenting on Caretakers. So I want to answer a couple of those for you today. My presentation today is going to be different. It's not particularly Civil War. You're going to see some Civil War photographs and stuff in here, but I have been specializing in collecting pips, or photographs in photographs, and I coined the phrase pip just to make it easier. So, first question: how and when did you become interested in the Civil War and or photograph collecting? And for me, that's a long journey. I'm 55 years old this year, and I've never not collected something. My father was a collector. My mother was a collector. So it was in my blood. My father specialized or loved Indian artifacts, and we was raised up on farms, several different farms in Kentucky. And so we would, after we plowed a new field, a rainstorm would come, we'd always walk the fields looking for Indian artifacts and arrowheads and that type of stuff. So I've always been collecting. But I wasn't particularly interested in the Civil War, didn't know a whole lot about the Civil War. Really, I was about 12, 13 years old. My father plowed up a new field, and we go out, as we normally would, and looking for Indian artifacts and arrowheads. But after the rainstorm, we was walking through the field, and we would see these little white bullet-looking things, and we started picking them up. Not really. And my dad said, "Yeah, these look like bullets, Some of them 69 caliber, 58 caliber." He was a musket. He had muskets themselves for deer hunting and stuff like that. So he knew, but he knew these were much older, and so we took them to somebody that knew what they were, and they told us. And as it turned out, through research and stuff, that the Battle of Richmond, Kentucky, in August 29th, 1862, was fought on part of the land that my father was farming. And so that was my first experience in collecting Civil War items. And I just fell in love. I wanted to just find more. We even found some cannonball fragments from where the cannonballs exploded, and that was just through eyeballing, walking through the fields that they plowed and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. So I go back to 12, I say 13 years old, collecting Civil War items. Now fast forward a little bit to join the Navy. Then I needed something to do hobby-wise, so I bought a metal detector, and of course the first time I had an opportunity to go back to Kentucky, I took my metal detector with me, and I did metal detected the farm, and started finding buttons and bullets. And the house that was on the farm was built in 1822, so there was Civil War activity all around it. There, from what I read and researched, soldiers of both Union and Confederacy encamped around the property and on the farm. And so I just took my metal detector and just started digging. Ended up getting 6 or 7 U.S. plates, several bullets and buttons, and other soldier equipment. And again, even hooked me even farther for the Civil War collecting. And then I started going to shows, which ultimately led me to buying guns and swords and all the other stuff that relics that collectors want to have to show off in their man room. So I had an opportunity to open up a Civil War shop in Virginia Beach It was in the existing existing antique mall. But the lady said, "Hey, the days you're not here, I'll take care of everything for you." And so I did that, and of course that opened up a whole new world of collecting for me, because people bringing things in that I may not have ever seen before, personal family albums, photographs. So that was my first introduction, was at the shop there. And what really drew me to the photographs, I can kind of link back to even my metal detecting days. And it was always such a thrill for me to get a signal, and I would dig down and pull out a button or a buckle, and there was a connection that happened at that moment for me, because I knew that I was the first person to touch that button or that buckle or whatever other personal item I might have found, since that soldier lost it 150, 155 years earlier. And so there's a connection there, and I've still got quite a few things I have dug, but just those connections, to that soldier. So once I get introduced to photographs, that just kind of consumed me, because I could feel that same connection with that soldier, for one, because that soldier was sitting right there in front of you, or even a civilian, or because as time goes, my collecting expanded. And of course, as all of us that are here, we love the stories. We love to make the connections between the identification, who the soldier was, and maybe where he's from, what his life was like prior to the war and after the war, and what battles might he have fought in while he was actually, in service. So just so many stories and connections that can be made with a photograph, and that's what really attracted me to that. So I had a shop for about 10 years, and it come to a time I just, with family and everything else going on, I could not maintain working full time, having a shop, and raising the family and stuff. So I decided to get rid of the shop, but I didn't want to get out of collecting. I had pretty much not quit metal detecting, but I wanted to continue collecting. And as we know, guns, swords, knives, artillery shells, they all take up a lot of room to store. And with the love that I had gained and the knowledge and information I had gained on the photographs, I said, well, they're small enough, I can put them in drawers or whatever. And that's what I stuck with. And I just began to indulging and learning and everything that I could, meeting people, getting new mentors, learning all that I could about photography in general, and specifically Civil War photography, since that was my real love. And the more knowledge I gain, of course, the more you're understanding, different processes, whether it's a tintype, an ambrotype, or a daguerreotype. And probably once that I got a hold of my very first daguerreotype, I absolutely fell in love with the daguerreotype, the process, the beauty of the image itself. And that just started expanding my collecting to daguerreotypes. And basically now, to fast forward it, I collect everything from daguerreotypes all the way through cabinet cards, and now have no room to put what that I have, unfortunately. But anyway, that's another story. I just love good photography. And then fast forward the last 2 or 3 years, I have been focusing again on what I had called PIP photographs. Photos in photos. And what got me my interest there was I kept hearing everybody talking about this type of photograph, because you see them occasionally and pick them up, and you go to shows or the Daguerrean Society symposium or something like that, and you would see a PIP. And I'm like, why would someone have a photograph of someone else taken to be shown in their photograph? And I understood the memorial part. I understand maybe the person is deceased, or or whatever, or want to remember them in that photograph. But I thought, there's got to be more reasons than that. And so I just set on a journey to find out what, why and what reasons that a photograph in a photograph was taken or is there for. So that sent me out on a journey. So I'm going to start off with showing you some daguerreotypes initially, and I'll discuss and talk a little bit about each one. Not real in depth. I mean, I've only got 30 minutes to an hour, so I won't take up all your night. But this is one of my favorite. It's a 6-plate daguerreotype. As you can see, the man is pulling what looks like either putting a photograph in his pocket or pulling it out. The thing about with most of the pips, if a soldier, you can see the weapons that he has, or if he's identified, you can go back and find what his story is, and the research that goes on. But with most of the pips, they're not identified. The person in the photograph or the photo that's in the photograph, there are very few of them that I have found they were identified, so you can't know their story. So you have to kind of imagine, especially if it's going to be a memorial photograph or an endearment type photograph. As I look at this one, it tells me, it looks, what I come up with. Initially, you think he's pulling it out, and one way is saying, "Hey, I'm missing you," or he's held the photograph close to his heart. You just never know, and it looks like it's a photograph of a small child or a little boy. My second one is, this is a daguerreotype also of a young man, probably looks to be 16, 17 years old. If you look at the close-up, it's of a woman. Maybe that's his mother. Who knows? Again, the stories are lost. But again, to me, they speak to me more than just a regular portrait photograph. It adds another dimension, and even in artistic qualities, you'll see in some of the ones that I will show you today, there's some great artistic quality in these photographs, these pips. This one was taken around 1850s, and sometime in the 1850s. This is daguerreotype 6-plate of a man holding a photo on a table, circa 1850s. And if you notice, his finger is pointing, like, is he giving a gesture? I don't know. Again, there's just things you pick up and look at, and please notice on the column, also he's got his hat just setting up there, and the photograph that he has on the table displayed is of an older woman, maybe his wife, and a young girl that possibly could be his child. Now, were they no longer with him, and he's displaying that in memory of them? Was he on a long journey or a trip? Maybe he was a businessman or whatever. Maybe he was going off to find a new home for him and then come back and get them. And he found a Daguerrean photographer that will take his photograph with their photograph that he brought with him to remember them by, and then he mailed it back to him. Yeah. Who knows? You have to use your imagination on pip photography, and that's, to me, that's kind of a joy to do that too. Third one is a half-plate daguerreotype. Just like all types of photography, half plates, full plates are all are less common, if you will. This one, the lady holds a half-plate daguerreotype, probably of another man. So I don't know who that is, but is her father, her brother? Again, who knows? It was taken by the photographer McGleese in German out of Philadelphia, probably mid-1850s. The condition and quality is very important to me on these photographs. I love top shelf photography. Not that I have all top shelf, but they just seem to be more appealing. And this is probably one of my most favorite, and one that you've probably seen me post several times on my sites, sometimes even on Civil War Faces, because this is getting into the ambrotype photography. And this is a 6-plate ambrotype of a lady holding what looks like a quarter plate photograph of her husband, who is a soldier. It's harder to see probably or possibly in this photograph, but if you turn it just the right way, you can see definitely that he is a soldier. And that tinting is just spectacular. It's one of the best. The clarity is there. She's got some beautiful Victorian style type jewelry on. Probably even the locket that might have had his photograph in it also. And here is another favorite of mine, getting into the Civil War soldier pips. This is a quarter plate tintype with 2 soldiers standing. The photo is not identified for either of the soldiers, but the man's soldier standing has a photograph tied to his button. And in the real close-up, you can even see the string coming down from where he had it tied. But it is a woman, Is this a father, son, brothers? Is the lady, again, is telling me that he might have taken this photograph with a photograph of her that she gave him up on his departure, going off to war. And there he has, he's attached it near his heart. And he's had the photograph taken, and he's sending it back to her now, so that she knows that he's still remembering her and that he still loves her. You can just write a book just off that one photograph right here, I think. Just tell a story that we don't even know. This one is just, it just knocks your socks off just to take a look at it. It's just beautiful photography all around. It's a Mammoth Photograph, which is spelt wrong. Sorry about that. I think I got one more spelling error in here that I didn't correct. But anyway, you can see it's an older lady, and she has a framed paper photograph of a soldier, lieutenant probably, or at least an officer. You can see his shoulder straps there. Pretty evident to me that maybe this was her husband, and he got killed in the Civil War. And this photograph specifically was taken probably 1885 to 1900, or not 1885 to 1890 time frame. The clarity on it is just beautiful, even better so than the photograph I have uploaded here. Just very, very artistically done. Her dress is beautiful. I personally, we can talk about the morning dresses. I don't believe that this is a morning dress, but I think she's probably, again, just remembering her husband, and maybe leaving a photograph for her children that has both their father and her in it. Again, I don't know the full story here, but you can just only guess. Now this is definitely a death memorial photo. It's a cabinet card circa 1885. And you can see they have a full plate tintype set right in the center of the wreath of a Civil War soldier. Now I would say that they didn't wait 20 years to have a memorial for him from dying in the Civil War. So I would say that this is just a photograph that they used for this particular photograph. that showed identified that he was or had served during the Civil War. So just enjoy the photograph. This is a CDV of the 76 Ohio flag and officers' photos taken circa 1864-65 time frame. You can tell the flag was a battle flag. It's just shredded, and you'll have to forgive me that I have I don't know what happened. Let's see. Alright, we'll just go into this next one here. This is a knife plate Ambro, possibly a Southern boy. He's got a pip on the side table. It's of a man. Again, it's a young man. Maybe it's his father that's off to war, or who knows. 1862-63 time frame is when this one was taken. The 6-plate Ambrotype of a man that's holding CDV and a drawing. And the reason I know the other one is a drawing is because in the back of the case, this particular guy is identified, and it says that he drew the picture on the card next to the photograph. And the photograph is actually a cased image also. And unfortunately, the photographer did not get in close enough, or was not able to capture what the actual drawing was. But he has a very somber look. This one's really interesting. It's early 1860s, I do believe. 6-plate Ambrotype. Again, this is just as I'm researching and trying to find out why some of these photographs were taken, or were there any other subjects inside of the photographs other than just people. And as you can see, this one here is clearly a man with a top hat, probably a businessman, I don't know. Got a photograph of a building with several people standing around it. Again, why? Large family, I don't know, recruiting, I don't know, who knows. Just another, again, capturing a pip that's very unique because it has something in it other than just a portrait of someone else. Now we're kind of getting into a different genre of pips, if you will. Jewelry pip. This is a 6-plate Ambrotype of a beautiful lady holding her child, and she wears a large brooch with a photograph of a man in it. It's Civil War period. Maybe she had this taken to send off to him. Who knows? You always want to seek the why. No matter what kind of photographs you're collecting, you always want to ask these, ask questions. Who they are, where they were taken, who the photographer was, why was it taken possibly. Another jewelry pip, circa 1859-62 time frame, based off of her clothing. She wears a large brooch cameo, and she holds an open case, oval case. It's chained to her neck. Has a photograph of another lady. Maybe it's her sister, or maybe it was her younger, of her mother when her mother was younger. Who knows? But just a beautiful photograph all around. Very pleasing to look at. There's another one that just kind kind of captures you. You know, it moves you emotionally, especially if it is a memorial photograph. A mom holding the photograph of her daughter. Full plate size. I've just seen a handful of pips where that photograph that the person was holding was a full plate image, whether it's a paper or ambrotype tin daguerreotype. Another example of a photograph being held, and this was a young lady. It's got what looks like a half plate tin or ambrotype of a building, and in hand looking under the loop, and that's not, but it looks very much like the Libby prison. It's not, you know, there's enough features in that photograph that shows and that it is not that, but just another subject and very interesting. One of my favorites, because this is really the only one that I have ever seen, pip-wise, of a hard image where the person is holding CDVs like this, of that period, of the Civil War period anyway. I think later Victorian era you would see that more frequently because there was much more CDVs taken than other forms of photography. Three different children. So again, you can just imagine, did she lose her child? Did she lose all three of them? You know? Another jewelry pip. This one's just, you know, beautiful in every way, the artistic quality. And in person, this one is tinted very well. As you can see it even better than my uploaded photograph. I had to adjust because the way the lighting and just the way it was scanned, it just didn't turn out right. But you can see that she's wearing a large brooch, also of a man. A young man that has holding a full plate photograph of probably his family. Again, did he lose his family, or did he get lost or separated some way? Again, who knows what the story is, but it's just a very moving photograph. This one here just really, you know, again, why? He definitely, whether he's sad, I don't know, but his facial expression really looks sad to me. He holds a full plate, probably tin type. You can see two horses, a buggy, a man standing with a fence, and a barn behind him. Pretty incredible photo. 6 plate tin, Civil War era. And this is, I think, probably one of the only foreign pips that I have. But again, the artistic quality, the image that's captured here, the reasons, you can see he's got a letter. Maybe he received a package, and inside that package was a letter and these two photographs. And he's having a photograph taken to let them know that, hey, you know, I'm missing you like crazy too, and I really appreciate your package with the photographs in it and the letter that you sent. photograph in the back that's sitting on the table. You can see that one. With the one in the front or forefront, you really can't tell the subject of that one, but it's a woman in the back on this particular image sitting on the table. Rick Brown just asked if I coined the term pip, and I believe that I did. And now pretty much everyone is using that term, and even seeing it sell on eBay, listing as pips for sale. But take a look at a moment just to read this about Sojourner Truth. Says Sojourner Truth writes to Mr. Redpath that her grandson, James Caldwell, is a member of the 54th Regiment and was taken prisoner at Fort Wagner. And yeah, that's the 54th Massachusetts, famous U.S. color troop. It says, I had much rather he be killed than have him in the hands of rebels. I had this picture lying on my lap when I had mine taken. I will enclose one of mine in this. The photograph likeness of herself in the letter is very good and be acceptable to her many friends. And here is the photograph. An extremely rare photo of Sojourner Truth. And this is a very evident, just a remarkable photograph. The contrast, what it's saying, what Sojourner Truth's life was all about. She was an abolitionist in pursuit of freedom for those that were enslaved. Just a very, very, very powerful photograph. And here's a close-up of James Caldwell, U.S. Color Troops, 54th Massachusetts. Now, it's probably, in one way, he may not have seen it, but it could have been fate that he was actually captured and put into prison, vice going on the battlefield. And it could not have been good for him to live in a rebel camp, but it might have actually saved his life by him continuing on to battle and getting shot or whatever. But he went on later. He survived the war and was able to meet up with his grandmother, Sojourner, in Washington, D.C. at war's end. Just an incredible, incredible photo. I'm just going to let this one speak for itself for a moment. This is a 6-plate tintype and has so much going for it. There are several genres of photo collecting just in this one photo. You got a post-mortem, you got Pip, and you got children. And you can see the facial expressions on each one of them. Very sad. They've lost their brother. But in the midst of that, the mother or the father, the family called in a photographer to come to their home. And the way you know it's their home is there's also another photograph like this too, so you can see it's at the interior of their home even more in that photograph. But you can see there's probably dining room chair with a board laid out on both of them. A sheet placed over a piece of the board, and then the body laid out over on top of the sheet. Of course, we don't know how he succumbed, whether it's disease, a farm accident, or who knows, hunting accident. We don't know. We don't know the story. But what's even more incredible is that he holds a photograph, and it's not only a photograph, it's a photograph of 3 soldiers. Just mind-blowing. I think it appears to be a quarter plate photograph. You can definitely tell that it's 3 soldiers, all with kepis, sitting, holding muskets. There's an even closer up of it. Again, just powerful, extremely powerful photograph. Very rare. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation there of the pips. I have many more. I've got over 200 pips because I've been working on this project for a couple years. Now I think we're going to be able to get it into a book. Well, we are. All the photographs. You got to see some of them here today. Just highlights of the ones that I have. I got some even better and some worse, but still they all fit into the pip genre. And wanted to answer just a couple more questions, or actually, before I go, maybe kind of give you some advice. I want to know what kind of advice I could give to new collectors. And when it comes to photographs, I would say buy what you like. Spend some time researching on different genres that might appeal to you. You know, my love is Civil War, but I have got the disease of collecting dags through cabinet cards. Just good photography, again, is what I love. But buy what you like, not what someone else tells you should buy. You know, I don't even think you should really buy for investment per se, at least initially, and that type of thing. Some of these photographs are investment type images, but just buy what you like, okay? And when you buy a photograph, always make sure that you buy from someone that is reliable, that can give you any information that they have on it, what the provenance is, if there's any identification. And as we're finding out even more so in today's age, pretty much question all identifications. you know, just just do the research, and make sure that the photograph is original. That's why I love Civil War Faces so much, is because we have so many members that their knowledge base and knowledge level goes so deep, and you can always get an answer on Civil War Faces about photography, about the photograph that you want to buy or that you just bought. There's even been photographs identified on Civil War Faces. Civil War Faces has had where images are returned back to the family. Just an amazing group of men and women, and young and old, that are collectors out there. It's just an amazing collecting family that we have. Okay, and then without any further ado, I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions whatsoever. And I really appreciate it, fellas and ladies. Have a great evening.